All right, welcome back to the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. We are here with our second episode of the week ahead of week 11 in the NFL, and already some big news dropping before this week really even gets off and running. And we'll start with the Thursday night
Jim
football
Harbaugh is
recap.
the coach of the Bears. Oh wait,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, if
That's
only, if only. Well,
that's coming up.
he, he may be in Chicago the next couple weekends because he's certainly not going to be in Ann Arbor, that's for sure. But no, going off of kind of the slate that we'll have for you here over the next 20 minutes or so. We'll recap Thursday night football for you all. We'll discuss the Deshaun Watson news because obviously that's huge and has big implications for the playoffs, for the AFC North, and just for Cleveland in general. And then discuss our the current NFL midseason standings in the playoffs and comparing it to what we had before the season even began. We've got some very interesting, differences there, but also some that we got right as well. So we'll go through all of that later in this episode. But we'll start with the Thursday night football recap, which was the highly anticipated Thursday night matchup of the season between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. And unfortunately, in this one was it was kind of marred by injury and was much sloppier than one that we were hoping to get. But the Ravens do end up winning this game. They're 8-3, now really positioning themselves well in the AFC North for the playoffs and to get that division lead. But obviously, Mark, Joe Burrow going down, the biggest headline out of this game with a wrist injury. There's some, conspiracy theories coming out about the state of this injury and whether or not there were issues before. We can get into that. Mark Andrews confirmed done for the season by John Harbaugh. So that's a terrible, break for Baltimore. But Lamar Jackson, despite getting banged up, did return in this game shortly after and helped lead the team to victory. So all in all, big win for Baltimore. Very tough break for Mark Andrews, and a really difficult situation to monitor here for Cincinnati if Joe Burrow is going to miss some time, which it appears he may very well at least be missing a week.
Yeah, to me, I'm not making a huge deal of the whole, why didn't they report it? Joe Burrow with his wrist, he was wearing a brace. Dudes wear braces on like everything. Yeah. Ben Roethlisberger lived in like boots and braces after like every game and in between every practice.
Yeah, just for context of that, there were pictures and video floating around of Joe Burrow arriving to the game with already a brace on his wrist. And obviously, if there's an existing injury, the NFL teams are supposed to document that and let that be known. But yes, to your point, guys wear, things just, to help ergonomically, with their body. And people pointed out Tom Brady wore a knee brace like the last 10 years of his career.
So I guess the point I was trying to make with that is that all the reports are he was a full participant in practice every day in the short week. I think it was Chris Long, the former NFL player, on his Twitter, like posted a video of like dissecting last week's win over the loss, to the Texans, or where he could have got injured. It did seem like there was a play or two where it was like, look at his hand there. Like that could have been something. And all it takes is that, you tweak it in that game last week. It's a little sore all week. Maybe you're nursing it a bit. And then you come out in game speed. He took that really good fall early in the game where he had a rushing attempt and like I got taken down by his legs and braced himself hard. And you jam it up. And then you throw a really, a really, like a fastball, pitch, and all of a sudden it's like, there's something popped or something's wrong, and you can't go. There's so many tiny little ligaments and moving parts in the wrist. I'm not. Listen, I bet Joe Burrow to throw 2 touchdowns and to be, I lost money on the Joe Burrow injury too. I know a lot of people. That's the big thing is like the gambling lines. If he's injured, you got to report it. But I'm not as into the conspiracy. I think it's pretty viable that he had maybe something going on. It wouldn't have stopped me from betting him anyways, even if there were slight reports. If he was playing, I was going to bet Joe Burrow because he's healthy enough to play. And it's a bummer. So it was a huge damper on that game when he went out in the second quarter, and it made the game go from a must-watch to credit to the Ravens for sticking with that game, though, fighting through it and winning that game convincingly. Because now to me, the Ravens feel like that win punched them a ticket to the playoffs. I don't know if it's going to be as the division winner. I don't know if it's going to be as a wild card, but it feels like them at 8 wins. If you look at their schedule, There's
Agreed.
definitely 2 more wins available for them somewhere with how well they've been playing, even without Mark Andrews, to make the playoffs. But the Mark Andrews injury is very much at what cost? How far can this Ravens team go without Mark Andrews? I think this is a massive loss for the Ravens.
It's
I know he
huge.
said out for the season. Does that mean just the regular season? The MRI hasn't confirmed anything as we're recording this around 1:40 Central Time. So we don't know all the details. If surgery is required, that it's probably missed the playoffs or whatever. But Mark Andrews coming back in the playoffs would still be huge for this team. Him and Lamar have developed a little bit of that Kelsey Mahomes, or they were in the same draft class. They've been together their whole time there. They know each other where they want to go on the football field. And it's a massive loss for this Ravens team. But a credit to them for when Joe Burrow went out.
Mark.
What?
We just got breaking news come down from Adam Schefter. Joe Burrow is done for the season.
What is it?
Season ender. All he wrote
season
in
ender?
His tweet is Joe Burrow is out for the remainder of the season. God,
you just checked.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Well,
I was just going to check and see what the latest on Mark Andrews was. We didn't expect, I don't think, to see this news from Joe Burrow. Thought he'd be out for maybe several weeks.
Ian Rappaport says a torn ligament in his wrist.
Unreal.
Well, you know what? Let's be honest then. Let's just say it. The Bengals are now done. If you're the Bengals, you want to go into tank mode. Like if you're the Bengals, you don't want to win another game because you can maybe with 5 wins, you could get a top 10 pick if you're the Bengals. Like I would shut down Chase. I'd shut down you know what I mean? Like I would absolutely go into tank mode if you're the Bengals. And now Joe Burrow's career is, to me, marred a little bit by injury. Like he is, when he is healthy, he's the number 2 guy in the league. But he has started the season injured, appendectomy, he can't control, calf, the ACL and MCL when he tore that up in his rookie year. Now the ligament. I mean, Joe Burrow hasn't played a complete season yet in his NFL career. And this will be another offseason of surgery for Joe Burrow. Really brutal. Really, really brutal. But now if you're the Bengals, you got to go in tank mode.
Yeah, that's terrible, man. That we were talking about how just on this past Monday, on how the AFC North was, a force to be reckoned with, could potentially have 4 playoff teams in it. And just like that, we had Deshaun Watson go out for the season.
And
now Joe Burrow out for the season. Mark Andrews potentially out for the season, which is a huge blow for the Ravens. My goodness, what a change, of circumstances in just a matter of days. Unbelievable. And unexpected ones too. I don't think we expected this Deshaun Watson news either, which we'll get into here shortly. But I do want to wrap this up with the Bengals talk because, obviously with this dropping right now as we're recording here, this is very surprising. It also might be ultimately, I want to look at the glass half full kind of situation here for the Bengals as well. Yes, if you losing games the rest of the way is going to be probably a great scenario for you if you're Cincinnati at this point, because you're just not, even if you somehow sneak into the playoffs, you're not going to be winning a playoff game most likely. And so, now you look at getting that draft pick a little bit higher, but on top of that, Joe Burrow came into the season, wobbly, right? And then the calf injury popped up very early. He came back. He was battling through stuff. He was clearly banged up. And now at least, for the glass half full take, he is guaranteed rest now.
Yeah.
For
That's a
year.
Great point.
Not a year, but 9 months guaranteed rest. It's probably going to be, unfortunately for him, potentially a similar situation that it was this past year. Yet again, not participating in training camp. I mean, again, it's a wrist injury.
Yeah,
it's not, as big of a deal, but it's possible that this type of stuff lingers into the preseason to where he's not.
Brock Purdy had the elbow, and he was good by like beginning of training camp. He may miss some spring workouts and stuff like that, rehabbing.
Yeah. Well, it just might be precautionary at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, he may be like fully healthy, but they're just like, we're not even taking any chances with you,
No,
Joe. We are going bare
Dan,
minimum.
That's a great point that you could spin this into. You're going to get Joe Burrow hopefully fully healthy to start next year. And hopefully maybe now add a top 10 pick. It's rare when you're a good team with a great quarterback, you're adding a top 10 pick. The Bengals may be able to do that. So there is some positive, but this is the year the Chiefs offense has looked maybe average, to just slightly above average, even though they have maybe the best defense ever. The Bills fell apart. Your Browns are falling apart. Andrews is injured. The Dolphins can't beat good teams. When you have a window, you never want to see a year go by. And this is now a year gone by for the Bengals fans. And now, we'll talk about with the Browns. And so that stings. That really hurts. I agree with you. Decent spin zone, but it's still, it still sucks if you're a Bengals fan. Then it sucks for us because now we got to deal with another bad quarterback play, another team. I mean, think about how many teams right now are in this situational, just bad football. You add the Bengals and the Browns to a list of Patriots, Giants, Bears, Panthers, Cardinals. That's just yuck football right now.
Jets, we've already talked about it in the past. This is already a historic season in terms of numbers of quarterbacks that have had to start games. And now we're going to be adding more to that list in Cincinnati and Cleveland as well. So moving forward with the Cleveland Browns, then the news broke that Deshaun Watson will be sat for the year. He's going to have season-ending surgery on his shoulder, a fractured shoulder it was. To his credit, the guy played through seemingly quite a bit the last month of the season to kind of grind it out. Maybe, although it wasn't for the best, because it's potentially contributing. We don't know that to be the case, but he had an ankle. Other injuries pop up that may or may not be related to the shoulder. But at the end of the day, they're going to be apparently starting the rookie Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was a preseason darling, but had a really rough first start in the NFL against the Ravens about a month ago. So here we are with another rookie getting to start in the NFL moving forward, potentially. But we did hear Joe Flacco was on a plane going to Cleveland. But here's what this spells ultimately. It goes to show yet again that in a world where, luck and being unlucky is just part of the game in the NFL, it happens every year. Injuries are something you can't necessarily predict. And there's something that plagues a lot of teams and can shut down a team season year in and year out. But it once again has brought back the conversation of the terrible trade, the terrible contract that Cleveland gave up to sign Deshaun Watson, who had his injuries before, was, approaching 30, and you gave him the greatest contract that any athlete in the NFL has ever seen, fully guaranteed $230 million. And now he has played 12 games for your franchise and is now out for the season in year 2. Yeah. By the way, last year and this year, Mark, were the okay salary cap hits for Deshaun Watson's contract on this team. Now it's $60 million next year, and moving forward after that, it is going to increase. So the window to actually be able to get stuff done was last year and this year, and now you're going to be strapped for cash. Brutal for Cleveland, rough for Deshaun, but this is, the NFL world is obviously, not complaining or not upset or saddened for Cleveland with the situation that they find themselves in today.
Yeah, you nailed it right there. The opportunity to make this deal when it came up almost 2 years ago, when they traded, they let go of Baker Mayfield and they traded all those picks and then signed Deshaun to the guaranteed $230 million. Remember what made that deal so gross to us, and we talked about it on the show, was that in year one, because they knew he was going to be suspended for 10 games, his salary cap hit was only $1 million. Remember, it was like a signing bonus, then his salary cap was only $1 million. Mm-hmm. And then he came back last year after the suspension and was just not good. But you're like, all right, well, whatever. He's so much time off. You got to get the system rust, and then he'll be back this year. This year started really shaky and then has been plagued with injuries. And this year the cap hit was only $19 million. 2024, 2025, 2026, the cap hit is $63.9 million. Yeah. You're not I can firmly say it right now. The Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson together will not win an AFC North title and will probably not win a playoff game. Because even if they do make the playoffs in the coming years, next year, this team was built to win now last year and this year. The defense is aging. Myles Garrett's cap hit is going to go up. He's only getting older. That offensive line that was 2 years ago and last year the best in the league is another year older, and they're losing guys. Chubb has the injury. We don't know what he's going to be like going forward. You're now going to have to draft extremely well because you have the two giant salaries with Garrett and Watson. You're going to have to figure out what you're doing with Amari Cooper. And so this team is now older, expensive by the time that Watson's healthy enough to play next year. And by the time Watson's back next year, he's coming off of a major shoulder surgery on his throwing shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
He's almost 30, if not, he's turning 30. What made him special was his athletic ability and his bombs, his deep balls. He was very much Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields. What made him special is not dink and dunk, or not even what CJ Stroud is, which is like big, strong in the pocket. What made Watson special when he had that 21-0 lead over the Chiefs in that playoff game and then ended up losing that was the dude moves and hits bombs with Jackson and Brandon Cooks. Well, that's gone. His athleticism is diminished. The team is diminishing around him. I feel very confident in saying the Browns and Deshaun Watson will never win an AFC title together. They will AFC North title, and they will never win a playoff game together. Because even if they make the playoffs in the coming years, you're on the road against a Cincinnati or a Baltimore. You're on the road at a Bills or at a Miami. You're on the road at a Kansas City. I have no
momentum.
You're on the road at a better quarterback in the Texans in Houston. You're on the road at the Jags. I feel very confident in saying that. And so it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. We knew it would be, and it is blowing up in Cleveland's face. And what they should do is exactly what I just said to Cincinnati. The best thing that can come of this, try to get a top 10 pick. They should they should go into the not win another football game mode to try to have because adding a top 10, 15 talent to this roster, that is meaningful. That is meaningful, just like it is for the Bengals.
Well, do they have a 2024 first rounder, or is that still,
the Texans?
Is that still the Texans?
But I think the Texans did end up moving some of those picks because let me look really quickly. You go ahead and I'll look.
Yeah, I mean, we're 2 years in now.
No, it's to the Texans. You're right.
There you go. So
Texans still have
more good news for the Cleveland Browns.
Which is why the Texans still have a first rounder, because they traded their first rounder to Arizona last year. But the reason they did that is because they still had a guaranteed first rounder in Cleveland's first rounder.
And now it's who would have thought that their first rounder was going to be a lower draft pick than the Browns one that they held on to. Arizona probably said, no, we want yours, not the Browns.
And now they want your probably
first rounder, and now it's going to exactly. So funny how that works out. But yeah, we're 2 years in as well. And to go off of everything you just said, which I agree with, he will have had no time to develop any sort of rhythm or cadence within this Kevin Stefanski system, because, came in last year after the suspension, had, splotchy starts. Nothing really seemed to work well. Came into this year, then got banged up for a game or two, came back, finally started to play well. It was literally, going into last week where it felt like momentum was just starting to be established, and then he gets hurt. So now you're going to have to wait till year 3 in the system to hopefully begin to establish some momentum within the system, and which you don't even know if that exists currently. Yep. And you're going to have to do it with the $60+ million cap hit.
Also, he hasn't. The one thing we said about him this year, too, is it was important for him to just play football, because he hasn't played enough football over the last 4 years. And now he's missing more football. So, yeah, it's a disaster. And again, the one bright spot is you could say is that, He's still not ancient. They still have him locked up. You know what I mean? Like maybe you can move the contract around to take the cap hit a little lessen. You can make it more of a signing bonus. I'm sure there's things to do, but it's still going to be a weight on this franchise. And they really missed their window. Their window to win was last year and this year. Remember, all last year we kept saying, hey, can Brissett just keep them above 500? Deshaun comes back, and this team could win the AFC. Look how loaded this roster is. Felt the same for a lot of people this year, and just disaster. And now this AFC field, as we're going to transition into playoff talk, this AFC field, it was once like, how do you find space? Now there's all these openings for the Houstons, for the Jets to stay alive, for your Steelers, the Colts. I mean, there is openings for this in the AFC right now.
Unbelievable. All right, yeah. So we will transition to that and look at our rankings heading into the season. These were our preseason predictions for how the playoff seedings were going to shake out at the end of the year. We're now just over midseason, and so we're going to take a look at kind of how our predictions have held up so far. So Mark, these were yours. I'll get rid of these.
NFC, Mark, NFC. All right. Well, listen, Eagles and Lions nailed
the Eagles and Lions. So where we're standing right now with the NFC picture is the 1 seed belongs to the Eagles at 7-2. So 11-6, definitely in play. But certainly they are on their way to an even better record than that.
All right,
the Lions are number 2 as well. And the Lions are, oh, did I say 7-2? I'm sorry, 8-1 for the Eagles. Lions are 7-2. So they are looking like they're on their way to a 12-13 win season potentially. And then we've got 49ers as the 3 seed at 6-3. 49ers are the 5 seed, so you're not too far down there. 10-7. They're 6-3 right now, so they'd have to go 4-4 the remaining rest of the way here. Saints as the 4 seed for you. They are also the 4 seed at 5-5, so 9-8, right on track with that prediction. The 5 seed for you, as we just mentioned, were the 49ers. So the Rams are not in contention currently. They are not in the top seeding here. 5 seed in reality belongs to the Seattle Seahawks at 6-3. And then the 6 seed is the Cowboys at 6-3. And finally, the Vikings as the 7 seed at 6-4. So you've got the Eagles, the Lions, the Saints, and the Vikings. 4 of your 7 seeds are spot on, and you have a 5th playoff team in the 49ers in there as well. So if you got 5 of the 7 playoff teams accounted for here in the seeding.
I had said when we did this 2.5 months ago, I had said the Rams, I know, was going out in a limb. And the limb broke. Okay, the limb broke. So we don't even have to address that. That's obviously, I was wrong. I went out on a limb. I like the young defense. I thought Donald was going to have one final giant year. We haven't really talked about Aaron Donald at all this year. And then Stafford hasn't stayed healthy enough. And so the Rams aren't out of it. I don't think the Rams are totally out of it, especially if Stafford's healthy this week. Can they steal a game against Seattle? It looks like he's going to play. Here's my biggest thing is I guess I'm frustrated myself with this. It looks like Dallas is definitely going to walk into the playoffs. And that one bugs me because I really thought that there'd be enough more battling with the Giants and things to really keep Dallas just on the outside looking in. And Chicago's obviously let me down. The Bears, if they win out, can still figure a way to make that happen. But
there you go.
And with the Vikings, can I take credit for it? I certainly didn't think they'd lose Kirk Cousins and end up 10-7. So that was more of, I'm feeling a little lucky on that one. Listen, it was, when we do these predictions, you try to be bold and be funny, and that one, and maybe be willing to make a fool of yourself. And I certainly feel 50% dumb and 50% very smart.
No, I mean, I'd say about like 75% because you got 5 of the 7 accounted for so far. I
truly think San Francisco will end up as the 3. Seattle will make the playoffs. And I do think the Saints will end up as the 4. You're just going to see that Dallas end up as that 5, Seattle 6. And I do think Minnesota right now is the 7 seed. I think they'll hang on to that 7 seed.
So instead of the Bears and the Rams, it's the Cowboys and the Seahawks making the playoffs.
Basically,
in
yeah.
regards to your list, my list had the Eagles as the
Yeah, you're way
1 and the
closer.
49ers at the 2, but the 49ers right now are currently at the 3 at 6-3. Eagles at 12-5. I mean, they're
You're
they
basically
may
just
still go
swapping.
12-5, but they'd
Yeah,
have to lose 4 games.
you're swapping basically just Bears and Vikings.
Yeah.
And then
So
moving some guys around, moving some teams up, some teams down. You didn't think Dallas would have a good, as great of a year either. I forgot that you weren't as high in Dallas either.
I wasn't high on Dallas, and
What's
I had
Dallas's
them.
schedule like?
It's they've been a surprise to me at 6-3,
I
although
mean,
maybe they shouldn't have been. But
listen,
I
Dallas
just
has some tough games ahead, Dan.
okay. All
They
right.
get,
Well,
listen to this. I mean, they have the Panthers. That should be a win. They're home against the Commanders. The Commanders will put up a fight. But then they have a stretch of, listen to this, 5 games. Seahawks, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions.
yeah, that could easily be 0-5.
I don't know about
1-4,
easily 0-5, but I mean that
no,
they
not
might,
easily, but it could.
They might back their way into the playoffs here. That's for sure.
Yeah. Obviously the Bears let both of us down. I think we had the exact same prediction for them.
Listen,
there
the
at
Bears can
6,
go
but,
undefeated.
they can't. That's just the rest of the way. Come on, Chicago.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing I think so far was I had the Buccaneers winning 5 games and they've already won 4. So
yeah, but they might
that
only
was one
still
where I
win
thought
5
they'd be
or 6
awful.
games.
That's hopefully I can be proven correct on that front, but we'll see. I'm not feeling as confident about that one. All right, moving to the AFC.
Is this me?
This is me. So
oh, good, because I didn't like the Jets. I remembered.
Yeah. So that one's not looking too good from my perspective. Ooh. The Chiefs are the 1 seed currently right now at 7-2, so I feel good about that. Bengals at 12-5. Yeah, they've already lost 5 games, so that's and as we're going right Burrow. Now, there's almost a 0%, probably a high likely chance that they don't even make the playoffs. The Jets are not in playoff contention right now. Or they're in contention, but they're not in the playoffs currently. The Jaguars are the 3 seed currently at 6-3, so I feel fine with them at 10-7 at the 4 seed. I had tempered expectations for them. You were a little bit higher on the Jags than I was. And I had the Chargers in there at 11-6. That's proven to be a poor estimate, as they are 4-5 right now. They'd have to go 5 and or I'm sorry, they'd have to go 7-1 the rest of the way. So yeah, good luck to LA on that front. Dolphins as the 6 I had. They are currently the 4 seed at 6-3. And I had the Steelers as the 7 seed, 11-6. They're 6-3.
That'll
I still
work.
feel pretty good
That's
about the Steelers
happen.
prediction. Feel very bad, and this is the first time I've ever underestimated the Ravens. I'm always very high on the Ravens. This was the first year where I was like, you know what? I just I don't know how it's going to fare with the first year with the whole new offense and all this stuff. They've certainly proven me wrong. They will most definitely be in this list. So as it stands right now, I feel, the Jets one I don't feel bad about because Aaron Rodgers, we just couldn't have predicted it.
Yeah.
And same with the Bengals. But that being said, the Bengals, even with Burrow, we're not going 12-5 this year. No. That much is clear. So I feel like, I probably should have tempered those expectations a little bit. And the Chargers, I don't know why I was so high on Kellen Moore somehow fixing all of the wrongness of Brandon Staley and that crew. That was an overestimation on my part. And so really not putting the Ravens in here was my biggest blunder by far. And, what's not listed here is I think I had the Texans going 6-11. They are 5-4.
Yeah.
So, great job by them. I just didn't think that a rookie head coach and rookie quarterback were going to be this great this early on. So kudos to them. The rest of the grouping, I mean, Steelers, Dolphins, Jags, and Chiefs, all I think are going to make the playoffs. So 4 of the 7 I feel good about. And let's see what your lineup is.
So
a little more accurate.
Obviously, the Bills are letting me down, but I had that Bills at 12 wins. So the Bills are letting me down. I was with you with the Chargers. I believed in Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore putting it together. I believed that Brandon Staley would then go all in on his defense, fix his defense, and let Kellen Moore run the offense. And they just been a disaster. Obviously now with the Bengals and Burrow, that's a bummer. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers, that's a bummer. To me, I think the biggest thing in the AFC as you look at it now is that we have this cluster of injuries for the Bengals, for the Jets, that those were playoff, kind of guaranteed locks, that it reopens the doors for the Bills. And then if you're a Miami, if you're a Buffalo, you cannot, if you're the Chargers, you cannot afford to miss the playoffs this year. If you made the playoffs last year, and now knowing that the Bengals and the Jets are definitely out and the Browns are out, like you can't afford to miss the playoffs right now. If you are a Jags, if you are a Chargers, if you are a Dolphins, you have got to make the playoffs if you're those three teams to keep heat off of your coaching staff, to keep your jobs, because you do not want an upstart Texans team stealing one of your spots if you're the Jags or the Dolphins or what have you. If you're the Bills right now, you cannot afford to miss the playoffs with a healthy Josh Allen when there's no Aaron Rodgers, no Joe Burrow, no Deshaun Watson in the AFC. And if you're a team like the Broncos with a slow start, now is your chance. Make a run. Try to upset some people and get some people fired. There are some teams out there. The Houston Texans could get some people fired by sneaking into the playoffs this year, because there are some organizations that had high expectations, like the Chargers, like the Bills on my list here, that are probably in danger of making the playoffs right now. And that means you're going to be finding some new jobs if you're those teams.
7 teams that are outside of the playoffs currently in the AFC. So all the way from seed number 8 to 14, they are either 5-5 or 4-5.
Yeah, they're right there.
There's an opportunity for all of these teams to push themselves into the conversation, because the 7-seeded Texans are 5-4. So we're talking about a 1 to 2 game difference right now from the playoffs in the AFC.
And you're going to watch the 6-seeded Browns are going to start falling down the list as well.
Yeah,
so there's going to be openings.
So someone's jumping in there, man. Are the Raiders somehow going to get in the playoffs? That'd be insane. I will say too that I didn't mention, I feel extremely happy right now about my Bills prediction of not only missing the playoffs, but at 10-7, I still feel like 10-7 is very much. They may go 9-8. They're 5-5 right now, so that's brutal for the Bills. And I didn't mention this, and I don't take. I'm not excited at all by the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers get to benefit from others' misfortune, because there's going to be an asterisk on the division if the Steelers somehow win it. But the Steelers now they absolutely need to make the playoffs with Deshaun Watson out and Joe Burrow out. If you don't find your way to the 1 or 2 spot in your division, then something went terribly wrong for Pittsburgh. So at this point,
I agree.
Pittsburgh absolutely must get into the playoffs.
They're like the Chargers.
It's a massive failure.
They're like the Chargers right now. You cannot go from making the playoffs last year to missing it with Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson all out. Like, you can't happen. It's one thing if they had all went out like week 16. No. They're all out with enough time for you to advance. And it is, pressure is on those teams. Pittsburgh, Chargers, the pressure is on teams like that. The Jaguars to right the ship and to stay in the playoffs, the pressure is on.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Wow, what a crazy week, a crazy last 24 hours in the NFL world. But that is football. It's part of the reason we love it, is that, it's any given Sunday, but it's also any given Monday, Tuesday, and so on, because things change in the blink of an eye. And we've noticed that here with 3 teams in the last couple of days. So very interesting stuff. Glad we got to go over that and kind of get ourselves a gut check
Yeah.
on the standings and the predictions and things like that. So we'll return to our
got the breaking
regularly
news during the
scheduled
show.
programming. Yeah, nothing like the biggest breaking news I would say that we've ever had during a show in our 3+ years
Joe
of
Burrow
doing
out,
this
yeah.
thing. That's absolutely massive. So we'll keep tabs on the state of Mark Andrews to get full clarity on that. But as of right now, Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow officially done for the season. Season-altering moves here by those two AFC teams, and things are wide open. So playoff picture continuing to evolve and move as we get closer and closer to the end of this thing. But that will do it for our midweek recap as we get ready for Week 11 here coming up on Sunday. So stay tuned for that recap episode on Monday. But for now, I'm Dan. He's Mark. Thank you for